The dust-choked streets of Dusthaven baked under a merciless sun, the kind that turned ghost rock veins in the ground to simmering hellfire. Iron-rimmed wagons creaked past the Gearhouse Saloon, where brass pipes hissed aphrodisiac vapors into the air, mingling with the stink of holy tonic and unwashed sin. Inside, the clockwork piano tinkled a dirge-like melody, its keys depressed by invisible gears, as if the damned themselves were playing for tips. Elara Voss, once Elara Thorn, heiress to a fertile ranch on the edge of the Badlands, moved through the haze like a ghost in silk. Her once beautiful face, sharp with high cheekbones and eyes like polished obsidian, was now marked by the faint glow of her atonement tattoo. It swirled across her collarbone, a clockwork mandala of brass-etched lines that ticked inexorably towards 0. 3 hours left. That's what the faint hum told her, vibrating against her skin like a lover's whisper turned cruel. Repentia like her didn't get second chances. They got quotas. Services rendered, sins absolved, through flesh and confession. But Elara had risen to veiled matron, managing the Gearhouse with an iron fist wrapped in velvet. She whispered secrets to church spies, tallied quotas, and ensured the holy work continued amid the moans and clinks of gear entanglements. She adjusted her veil, the thin brass mesh that hid the scars from her branding ceremony. The parson had done that himself 5 years ago. Father Harlan Crow, with his oily smile and fingers like cold steel. He'd accused her of heresy, consorting with coyote shamans, he'd said, to seize her land for the church's ghost rock mines. Her family hanged as examples, her body consigned to atonement. Now, she poured tonic-laced whiskey for miners and gunslingers, her hips swaying with practiced allure, but her mind was a blade sharpened on revenge. The door swung open with a groan of rusted hinges, admitting a gust of rust-storm wind that scattered metallic dust across the floorboards. In stepped a figure cloaked in black robes, the hem embroidered with spinning gear motifs. Father Harlan Crow. Older now, his face a map of wrinkles and self-righteous sneer. But those eyes, beady, hungry, hadn't changed. He scanned the room, his gaze lingering on the Repentia, lounging on brass chaise lounges, their tattoos glowing faintly in the green ghost rock lanterns. Elara's heart stuttered, then hardened. He didn't recognize her at first. Why would he? She was just another fallen woman in the church's grand mechanism. But as she approached, tray in hand, offering a complimentary holy tonic, brewed strong with essence of reclaimed souls, his lips curled. "Ah, matron," he purred, voice like oiled machinery. "A private chamber. The road from Ironhaven has been taxing. I require atonement's mercy." She forced a smile, the kind that promised oblivion. "Of course, father. The deer turns for us all." Her voice was honey over gravel, laced with the black humor that kept Repentia sane. Inside, her tattoo pulsed, 2 hours, 58 minutes. If it hit 0 before she finished him, her own hunters would come. Redemption Hounds, steam-powered beasts sewn from the skins of failed penitents, programmed to drag her to final penance. She led him upstairs, the wooden steps creaking under his weight. The private chamber was a den of faded opulence, velvet curtains frayed by rust, a 4-poster bed with brass restraints for the more devout patrons, and a clockwork mirror that reflected sins in distorted ripples. A small altar to the eternal gear sat in the corner, incense burning with an acrid metallic tang. Harlan shed his robe, revealing a body soft from years of tithe feasting, but his belt held relics. A gear-embedded crucifix, a vial of holy water, and a summoning whistle carved from bone. "You remind me of someone," he mused, settling on the bed. "A heretic I once saved. Beautiful, but damn." Elara's fingers tightened on the hidden stiletto in her garter, a sliver of silvered steel pilfered from a gearstalker's kit. "Saved? How generous!" She poured more tonic, spiking it with a drop of necrotic essence, enough to loosen tongues, not kill outright. Yet, he drank deeply, eyes glazing with the brew's hallucinogenic haze. The land was fertile, ghost rock beneath the soil. The church needed it. She resisted, foolish girl. His hand reached for her veil, pulling it aside. Recognition dawned, slow and delicious. Thorn? Elara Thorn? By the gear, you've blossomed in atonement? She straddled him, her silk gown whispering against his skin, the stiletto pressing lightly against his thigh, unnoticed, for now. And you've grown fat on my blood, father. Her voice dropped to a whisper, fingers tracing his chest as if in caress. The seduction was a weapon, honed over years of quotas. But her tattoo hummed. 2 hours, 45 minutes. Harlan chuckled, a wet, rattling sound. The eternal gear forgives, but I collect. His hand fumbled for the summoning whistle. Perhaps a demonstration of faith. He blew into it, a shrill note that pierced the air like a steam whistle. The floorboards shuddered. From the shadows beneath the bed, summoned by church arcana woven into the whistle, a redemption hound materialized. It was a nightmare of flesh and machine. The flayed skin of some poor penitent stretched over a brass frame, gears whirring in its joints, eyes replaced by ticking clock hands. Steam hissed from its maw, lined with jagged teeth like rusted saw blades. It growled, a sound like grinding metal, its nostrils flaring as it scented sin, not hers, but his command bound it to protect. Kill her, Harlan wheezed, shoving Elara off. Heretic twice over. She rolled, the stiletto flashing out. The hound lunged, paws thudding like pistons. Its jaws snapped inches from her throat, hot steam scorching her skin. Elara kicked, her heel connecting with its brass underbelly, eliciting a clang and a yelp. The chamber erupted into chaos. The clockwork mirror shattered as the hound barreled into it, shards raining like metallic snow. Harlan scrambled for his crucifix, chanting a ward. By the eternal gear bind the unclean? But the tonic slowed him, his words slurring. Elara dodged another swipe, the hound's claws raking furrows in the floor. She grabbed a brass lamp from the bedside, its ghost rock bulb glowing green, and swung it like a club. The impact dented the beast's skull, steam venting in a high-pressure scream. But it reformed, gears clicking as necrotic energy knit the damage. Her tattoo pulsed. 2 hours, 30 minutes. Time was bleeding away. She needed to end this quick. Seduction forgotten, she feinted left, then drove the stiletto into the hound's eye socket. The clock hand shattered, black ichor spraying, undead essence mixed with oil. The beast howled, thrashing wildly, its tail whipping like a chain. Harlan lunged, grabbing her ankle. You'll burn for this, whore. His fingers dug in, but she twisted, kneeing him in the gut. He doubled over, retching tonic. The hound, half-blind, charged again. Elara vaulted onto the bed, using the canopy as leverage to swing-kick its jaw. Bone cracked, human bone from the penitent's skin, and it staggered. She dropped, seizing Harlan's vial of holy water from his belt. Uncorking it with her teeth, she splashed the contents into the hound's maw as it snapped at her. The water hissed on contact, steam exploding in a scalding cloud. The beast convulsed, its gears seizing as the blessed liquid corroded the unholy fusion. Skin sloughed off in wet flaps, revealing the brass skeleton beneath, ticking erratically. With a final, pitiful whine, like a clock winding down, it collapsed, steam dissipating into the air. Panting, Elara turned to Harlan. He was crawling toward the door, crucifix clutched like a talisman. The church will know. The gear sees all. She grabbed him by the collar, hauling him back. The gear, or your greed. Her stiletto pressed against his throat, drawing a bead of blood that smelled of copper and corruption. But killing him outright was too merciful. She needed confession, something to whisper to her church contacts, to frame his death as divine judgment. The tonic worked its magic. Harlan's eyes rolled, visions clouding his mind. I falsified the accusations. The land was rich. Tithes for the cardinal, her family, sacrifices to the oracle gear. Elara's lips curled in grim satisfaction. And now, your turn. She plunged the stiletto into his chest, twisting for the heart. Blood bubbled, hot and sticky, soaking her hands. He gasped, a wet rattle, then went still. But the tattoo hummed. 1 hour, 50 minutes. The kill had taken too long. Downstairs, the clockwork piano faltered, as if sensing the sin. Shouts echoed from the saloon. Patrons stirring, perhaps a church informant among them. She wiped the blade on his robe, pocketing the summoning whistle. Evidence. But as she turned to flee, a low growl reverberated through the walls. Harlan's death had triggered something, a fail-safe ward. From the shadows of the hallway, not one, but 2 Redemption Hounds slunk in, summoned by his final breath. Twins to the first, their clock eyes ticking in unison, skins pale and stretched, maws dripping steam. Elara backed against the wall, stiletto raised. Come on, you bastards. Let's see if the gear favors the faithful. The first hound leaped, claws extended. She sidestepped, slashing at its flank. Skin tore, gears exposed, but it spun mid-air, tail lashing her arm. Pain bloomed, hot and sharp, claws laced with rust plague, she realized, feeling the corrosion spread like fire in her veins. The second circled, growling. They were coordinated, pack hunters programmed for efficiency. Elara grabbed the brass restraints from the bed, whipping one like a chain. It caught the first hound's leg, yanking it off balance. She stomped on its head, boot heel grinding into the clock eye. Shatter. Gunwell. Ichor sprayed. But the second pounced, pinning her to the floor. Its weight was crushing, brass frame unyielding. Jaws inches from her face, steam burning her eyes. She thrust the stiletto upward, into its throat. The blade stuck, gears jamming around it. The hound thrashed, but weakened. With a surge of adrenaline, she rolled, dislodging it. The first hound, damaged but relentless, limped forward. Her tattoo, 1 hour, 20 minutes. The rust plague tingled in her arm, numbness spreading. She couldn't outrun them forever. Downstairs, chaos erupted. Gunshots, screams. Had the hound's howls alerted the town? Or was it her quota alarm broadcasting sin? Elara kicked the weakened hound into the altar, toppling incense and relics. Holy water spilled, mixing with ichor. The mixture fizzed, corroding the beast's frame. It dissolved in a puddle of rust and flesh, a final steam sigh escaping. The last hound, blade still lodged, charged. She dodged, grabbing Harlan's crucifix. Chanting a half-remembered ward, by the eternal gear unbind, she slammed it into the hound's chest. Gears sparked, the crucifix embedding like a key in a lock. The beast froze, clock hands spinning wildly, then exploded in a shower of brass shrapnel. Silence, broken only by her ragged breaths. The room reeked of blood, steam, and burnt metal. Elara staggered to the window, looking out at Dusthaven's flickering lights. Her arm throbbed, rust veins creeping. The plague would claim her soon, unless she found a healer of the faithful. But the tattoo, 50 minutes. Her own hunters were coming, summoned by the zeroing quota. She could hear them in the distance, howls carried on the wind. She snatched Harlan's robe, wrapping it around herself. Evidence in her pocket, plague in her veins, hounds on her trail. Revenge tasted like ash, but it was hers. As she slipped into the night, a rust storm brewing on the horizon, Elara whispered to the gear, "Turn for me now, you bastard." The howls grew closer.